She was 6 years old with a handprint bruise on her face when she ran through 300 bikers and screamed, "They stabbed my mama!" at a Hell's Angel who hadn't spoken to a child in 20 years because the last little girl he tried to save was his sister, and he failed. When Von Dickens removed the one thing a biker never removes, his sacred leather cut and draped it over Vanessa's trembling shoulders, the Serpent Ridge crew realized they'd just made a fatal mistake. They'd hurt a child in front of a man who'd already lost one, and this time he wasn't letting anyone walk away breathing. Before we get into this, where are you watching from right now? I want to see how far this message reaches. Drop your city in the comments below. And if you believe in real stories about men who remove their own armor to protect a terrified child they've never met, hit that subscribe button right now. Now let's get into the story. Von Dickens never imagined that a charity run on a cloudless Saturday afternoon would turn into the most violent and sacred day of his life. Out of the dusty fairgrounds came a little girl in a torn blue dress, running like the devil himself was on her heels, clutching a blood-stained teddy bear and refusing to stop until she reached the stage. At first, Von thought she was just another lost kid looking for her parents. But when she climbed onto that podium and screamed words that shattered the air like breaking glass, he sensed something was terribly wrong. What he discovered in those next 60 seconds left him breathless. A mother stabbed and bleeding, a child marked by violence, and a debt the Brotherhood would pay in blood and honor. This was no ordinary encounter. It was a promise written in leather and sealed with thunder. The county fairgrounds outside Bakersfield sat beneath the kind of California sky that made you believe in second chances. Wide-open dirt lots, rows of chrome Harleys glinting in the afternoon sun, the smell of barbecue smoke and motor oil hanging thick in the air. American flags snapped in the hot breeze, and somewhere a speaker blasted Lynyrd Skynyrd loud enough to rattle truck windows a quarter-mile away. The Hell's Angels charity run was sacred ground. One day a year, when rival clubs put aside old grudges, when cops looked the other way, when civilians brought their kids to take photos on bikes they'd never afford. It was a truce day, a day the Brotherhood protected like gospel. Von Dickens stood behind the podium on a makeshift stage built from shipping pallets and plywood, his tattooed hands gripping the microphone like it might try to escape. He wasn't a man who talked much. Words felt heavy in his mouth, awkward, unnecessary. But today was different. Today was about raising money for veteran families, about showing the world that bikers weren't the monsters the news made them out to be. Behind him stood his brothers. Nate Dogg, barrel-chested, grinning like a wolf, fists that could crack cinder blocks. Shepard calm, sharp-eyed, the club's conscience wrapped in leather. Tuck lean, quiet, always watching, always thinking 2 moves ahead. The fairgrounds buzzed with life. Old ladies' biker wives worked the food tents, flipping burgers and slinging jokes. Kids climbed onto parked bikes while their fathers hovered nervously. Nomads rolled in from out of state, their cuts marked with the rocker that meant no home chapter, just the road. Everywhere you looked, riders threw 2 fingers down the biker wave, the silent nod of respect that said, "I see you, brother." Von cleared his throat and leaned into the mic. "Appreciate y'all coming out today," he said, his voice gravel rough. "We've raised over $12,000 for veteran families who—" A scream cut through the music. Heads turned. Von's hand froze on the microphone. From the far edge of the fairgrounds, a little girl ran full speed across the gravel lot, her blonde hair flying behind her, her small shoes slapping the dirt in frantic, uneven steps. She wore a torn blue dress. One sleeve hung half off her shoulder, and in her arms, clutched tight against her chest, was a teddy bear stained dark red in patches that looked too much like dried blood. Von's chest tightened. The girl sprinted past rows of motorcycles, stumbling once, catching herself with a sob, and then kept running straight toward the stage. Security stepped forward, but Vaughn raised one hand, a full patch signal. Everyone froze. The girl climbed the wooden stairs, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her whole body trembling so violently it looked like she might collapse. Vaughn crouched down slowly, bringing his face level with hers. Up close, he saw things that made his jaw tighten. A bruise on her left cheek, fresh, darkening, shaped exactly like a grown man's hand. Dirt smudged across her face, tear tracks cutting through the grime. And those eyes, terrified, desperate, the kind of eyes that had seen things no 6-year-old should ever witness. The tattoos along Vaughn's throat, skulls, roses, a crowned lion shifted as he forced himself to breathe slowly, steadily. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked quietly. The little girl swallowed hard. Her voice cracked when she spoke. Vanessa. "Okay, Vanessa. I'm Von, you're safe now. What happened?" Her bottom lip trembled. Her hands gripped the teddy bear tighter. And then she screamed 2 words that shattered the entire rally. "They stabbed my mama." The fairgrounds went silent. A woman dropped a plate. Somewhere a kid stopped crying. Even the engines seemed to idle quieter. Vaughn's mind flashed backward, unbidden, unwanted. A different child, a different scream. A door kicked open during a storm, his sister's voice calling his name, the sound of fists hitting flesh, the feeling of being too small, too weak, too late. He blinked hard, forcing the memory down. Not now. Behind him, Shepard muttered, "Jesus, Vaughn, look at her cheek." Vaughn saw it. Everyone saw it. The handprint bruise, the proof that someone had struck this child hard enough to leave a mark. His hands curled into fists. "Vanessa," he said, voice gentle but anchored with steel. "Who stabbed her?" "The snake men," she whispered. "The ones with the hissing patch. Mama told me to run. She pushed me through a fence. She said," her voice broke. "She said bikers don't get scared." That single line hit every man on that stage like a freight train. Bikers don't get scared. Nate Dogg cursed under his breath. Tuck's jaw tightened. Shepard looked away, blinking hard. Vaughn swallowed the lump in his throat. "What happened to your mama, Vanessa?" "She's alive," the girl said quickly, desperately, "but bleeding. They said she heard things she shouldn't. She told me to run, to find the bikes, find loud people. Everyone in that fairground knew exactly who the snake men were. Serpent Ridge Crew, a knife-happy splinter gang known for working with cartels, dirty sheriffs, and anyone with cash and no conscience. Tuck leaned close to Vaughn. "If Serpent Ridge is involved, this ain't random. They don't stab mothers unless someone wants them silent." Shepard nodded. She saw something. Probably something big. Vaughn looked down at the teddy bear in Vanessa's arms. Something about it felt wrong. The stitching along the belly was uneven, and when he touched it gently, he felt something hard beneath the fabric. A metallic bulge. His eyes narrowed. A recording device. Vanessa's mother had hidden something in the bear. Evidence, proof, something worth killing for. And this little girl had no idea she was carrying it. Before Vaughn could say anything, a teenage boy burst out from the tree line, pale and panting. "They're coming," he yelled. 3 Serpent Ridge bikes, maybe more. They got off the road before I could block 'em." Panic rippled through the crowd. Women grabbed their children. Bikers reached for phones, for weapons, for anything. Vaughn stood slowly, his shadow falling over Vanessa like a wall. Then he did something no one expected. He reached up and removed his leather cut, his patch, his identity, the Hell's Angels colors he'd earned through blood, loyalty, and a decade of proving himself worthy. He draped it gently over Vanessa's shoulders. The crowd fell silent. Every biker there, angels, nomads, even rival clubs, knew exactly what that meant. A Hell's Angels cut wasn't clothing. It wasn't merchandise. It wasn't a costume. It was a lifeline, a shield, a declaration of war. Hurt the person wearing this, and you've declared war on every one of us." Women in the crowd covered their mouths. Old ladies nodded in respect. Other clubs watched in stunned, reverent silence. Even Vanessa seemed to sense the weight of it, gripping the leather like it was armor forged from something holy. Vaughn lifted her gently into Shepard's arms. "Shep," he said quietly, "take her to the bunker room, tuck perimeter, Nate with me." Then he turned to the crowd, to the cameras already recording, to the civilians watching, to the Brotherhood standing witness, and spoke the words that would echo across every biker forum and Facebook page for the next decade. "Nobody touches a child under our colors and keeps breathing." The fairgrounds held its breath, and then a shotgun blast exploded from the edge of the lot. 3 motorcycles roared in, engines screaming, serpent ridge patches glinting in the sun. Their leader, Mako, knife priest Sanchez, serpent tattoo spiraling from jaw to eye, stepped off his bike, twirling a blood-stained knife. He smirked. "Dickens, you've got something of ours." Vaughn stepped off the podium with a calm that shook even his brothers. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, and the war began. The shotgun blast echoed across the fairgrounds like the crack of judgment. Women screamed, kids scattered, bikers reached for whatever they could, wrenches, chains, the kind of improvised weapons men who'd grown up hard knew how to use. 3 Serpent Ridge bikes roared into the lot, engines screaming, tires kicking up dust that hung in the air like smoke. Marco, knife priest, Sanchez led them, tall, lean, with a serpent tattoo that coiled from his jawline to his eye socket like something alive. He stepped off his Harley and twirled the knife in his hand, the blade catching sunlight. Behind him, 2 others dismounted. One had a shotgun, the other had dead eyes and a Louisville slugger. Vaughn didn't move, just stood there, arms loose at his sides, watching. Nate Dogg stepped up beside him, cracking his knuckles. "Heat check," he muttered. 4 more at the tree line, maybe 5. Tuck's voice crackled over the radio clipped to Vaughn's belt. "Make that 6. One's got a long gun. Roof of the barn." Vaughn's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Copy." Behind them, Shepard had already disappeared with Vanessa into the clubhouse, a low brick building at the far end of the lot with reinforced doors and a bunker room in the back. Inside, 3 women waited. Amber Nate Dogg's old lady, with a shotgun across her lap and eyes that had seen too much to scare easy. Red Shepard's wife, a former army medic who kept trauma kits stocked and ready. And Lou, grey-haired, tough as boot leather, the matriarch who'd been with the club since before half these men were born. Vanessa trembled in Shepard's arms, Vaughn's leather cut, swallowing her small frame. "You're safe now, baby," Lou said gently, pulling the girl close. "Ain't nothing getting through that door." Amber racked the shotgun. "Damn straight." Outside, Marco stopped 20 feet from the stage, grinning like a man who thought he'd already won. "Dickens," he called out, "you got something that belongs to us." Vaughn's voice was low, deadly calm. "Stabbing a mother in front of her kid? That your idea of business?" Marco shrugged. "Business is business." Vaughn took a step forward. "No, today it's personal. We want the girl back." Vaughn's response was a whisper, but it carried across the entire fairground. "You'll die before you get within 10 feet of her." Marco's grin faltered. Nate Dogg stepped forward. 4 behind the tree line, 1 on the barn roof. "You really want to do this here, in front of all these cameras?" He gestured to the crowd, dozens of phones recording, live streaming to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Marco hesitated. Then his eyes locked onto something behind Vaughn, the teddy bear. Vanessa had dropped it on the stage when Shepard carried her away. Marco's expression changed. "We need the girl alive," he hissed to his men. Vaughn moved first. One fluid explosion of motion faster than a man his size had any right to be, and he slammed into the first serpent, dropping him with an elbow that sounded like a bat hitting a watermelon. Nate Dogg broke another's nose with a punch that echoed like a gunshot. The fairgrounds erupted, but it wasn't chaos. It was coordinated, practiced, brutal. Tuck dropped the sniper on the barn roof with a tackle that sent both of them crashing through rotted wood. Shepard's voice crackled over the radio. Bunker secured. Vanessa's safe. Vaughn grabbed Mako by the throat and slammed him against a bike, the frame groaning under the impact. "You're taking me to her mother," Vaughn snarled. "Alive." Mako tried to smirk, but his voice came out strangled. I can't. They'll kill me." Vaughn leaned in, his voice colder than winter in the Rockies. "You should be more worried about me." Mako's eyes went wide. He nodded. Vaughn released him, and Mako collapsed, gasping. Inside the clubhouse, Vanessa peeked through a crack in the door. She saw Vaughn standing over the fallen serpents, saw the way other bikers moved to flank him, saw the respect in their eyes. And she understood something her mother had told her. Bikers don't get scared, not because they're fearless, but because they're the ones other people should fear. The clubhouse war room smelled like old leather, gun oil, and the burnt coffee that had been sitting on the hot plate since dawn. Vaughn sat at the head of a scarred wooden table, the teddy bear in front of him like evidence at a trial. Shepard stood to his right, arms crossed. Tuck leaned against the wall, eyes sharp. Nate Dogg paced near the door, still buzzing from the fight. Outside, 2 prospects guarded Mako, zip-tied to a chain-link fence. Vanessa sat curled in Lou's lap on a worn couch in the corner, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like lavender and motorcycle exhaust. Vaughn picked up the bear carefully, like it might break. "Vanessa, sweetheart," he said gently. "Did your mama say anything about this bear? Anything special?" The little girl shook her head. "She just said don't let go of it, no matter what." Vaughn's fingers found the uneven stitching along the belly. He pulled a pocket knife and carefully cut the thread. Inside, nestled between the stuffing, was a small digital recorder, the kind reporters used, no bigger than a pack of gum. Shepard whistled low. "Well, I'll be damned." Vaughn pressed play. Static, then voices. A man's voice, smooth, authoritative. "The shipment comes through Tuesday. Sheriff's got the route cleared. No highway patrol. No questions." Another voice, rougher. "And the girl?" "Collateral. She heard too much. Serpent Ridge handles it. Make it look random." "What about the kid?" A pause. Then, "Bring her in. She's leverage if the mother talked." The recording cut off. Silence filled the room. Vaughn's hands trembled, not from fear, from rage so pure it felt like fire in his veins. "Cartel," Tuck said quietly. "Has to be. That voice that's not local." Shepard nodded. "And the sheriff's dirty. That's why no one responded when Vanessa's mama called 911. Vaughn looked at Vanessa. "Baby, did your mama say anything about what she heard? Where she was?" Vanessa's voice was small. "She works at the diner, on Route 58. She said she was cleaning tables and heard men talking in the back room." "Route 58, Nate Dogg repeated. "That's cartel territory. Runs straight from the border to Bakersfield." Vaughn stood, the chair scraping against the concrete floor. He walked to an old metal locker in the corner, the kind that looked like it had survived a war. He spun the combination lock, 3 numbers only he and Shepard knew, and opened it. Inside was a Colt .45, a purple heart in a faded case, and a photograph. Vaughn pulled out the photo. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, with blonde hair and a gap-toothed smile. His sister, the one he couldn't save. Shepard saw it and looked away, his throat tight. Vaughn tucked the photo into his vest pocket, right over his heart. "We're getting her mother back," he said quietly, "and we're burning Serpent Ridge to the ground." Nate Dogg grinned. "Now you're talking." Tuck pushed off the wall. Marco knows where she is. We make him talk. Von nodded. Shepard, you stay with Vanessa. Nate, tuck with me. He walked to the door, then stopped. Vanessa, the little girl looked up. Your mama's gonna be okay, I promise. And Von Dickens never made promises he didn't keep. The convoy formed in the parking lot like a battle line. Von at the front on his blacked-out Road King, Nate Dogg and Tuck flanking him. Behind them, 6 more angels, every man who could ride and fight. Mako sat on the back of Nate's bike, hands zip-tied, face pale. You try anything, Nate growled, and I'll drag you behind this bike for 5 miles. Understand? Mako nodded quickly. Von pulled his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. 2 rings. Then a voice like gravel in a blender. Von, that you? Reaper, I need a favor. Reaper, president of the Nomad Charter, a man who'd ridden with Von back when they were both young and stupid, didn't hesitate. Where and when? Route 58. Farmhouse off mile marker 12. Cartel involved. Serpent Ridge. A pause. Then, we're 2 hours out. Hold tight. Von hung up and looked at his brothers. Nomads are coming. Tuk Grint. Raper? Yeah. Damn. Haven't seen him since Sturgis. The engines roared to life, a sound that shook the ground and sent birds scattering from the trees. They rode east into the fading light, the California desert stretching out around them like a stage for something biblical. Inside the clubhouse, Vanessa sat at the kitchen table, coloring with crayons Lou had found in a drawer. She drew a picture of a man on a motorcycle, big, strong, with a lion on his throat. That Von? Lou asked gently. Vanessa nodded. He's gonna save my mama. I believe he will, baby. Amber walked in, phone in hand. Just got word. Sheriff's department got a tip about suspicious biker activity. They're sending units. Red cursed. They're trying to box us in. Shepard appeared in the doorway, face grim. We need to lock this place down, now. The women moved with practiced efficiency. Amber positioned herself by the front window with the shotgun. Red prepped the trauma kit. Lou took Vanessa to the bunker room, a reinforced space in the back, with steel doors and enough supplies to last a week. It's like a fort, Lou said, trying to keep her voice light. Vanessa looked up at her with eyes too old for her age. Are the snake men coming back? Lou knelt down. Baby, they can try, but they ain't getting through us. On the highway, Von's convoy hit 80 miles an hour, the wind screaming past, the road a black ribbon cutting through the desert. Nate Dogg pulled up beside Von, shouting over the wind. You good? Von nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. A door slamming. A storm, his sister screaming his name. The feeling of being too small, too weak, too late. He blinked hard, gripping the handlebars tighter. Von, Nate's voice cut through. You with me? Yeah, I'm good. But he wasn't, not really. Because every mile they rode toward Vanessa's mother, he saw his sister's face. And this time he wouldn't fail. They crested a hill, and Tuck's voice crackled over the radio. Eyes on the farmhouse, 200 yards. Von slowed, signaling the convoy to pull off the road. Through the twilight, he could see it. A sagging structure, broken windows, a single light burning inside, and from somewhere deep within, a sound. Muffled, desperate, a woman crying. Von's jaw tightened. Mount up, we're going in. The farmhouse squatted in the dark like something dying. Paint peeling, roof sagging, windows covered with plywood and grime. Von killed his engine 50 yards out, the silence sudden and heavy. Tuck moved first, circling wide, checking for sentries. Nate Dogg crouched beside Von. How many you think? 3 inside, maybe 4. Von's voice was barely a whisper. Marco, still zip-tied, looked terrified. You don't understand. They'll kill me if I help you. Von grabbed him by the collar. And I'll kill you if you don't. Choose. Marco swallowed hard. Back door, it's unlocked, they're lazy. Von nodded to Tuck, who disappeared into the shadows. 60 seconds later, the radio crackled. Clear. 2 guards, both down. Von moved. He crossed the distance in seconds, boots silent on the dirt, and slipped through the back door. Inside, the house smelled like mold, stale beer, and blood. A hallway, a kitchen with a card table and empty bottles, and from somewhere deeper, a muffled sob. Von's heart hammered. He moved toward the sound, every sense on high alert. A door, padlocked. He pulled his knife and pried at the latch until it gave with a crack. Inside, tied to a chair, was a woman. Mid-30s, dark hair matted with sweat and blood, her shirt torn and stained, a stab wound in her side, bandaged crudely with duct tape and a torn t-shirt. Her eyes fluttered open. "Please," she whispered. "Please, my baby." Von knelt in front of her. "Vanessa's safe. I got her. You hear me? She's safe." The woman's eyes filled with tears. You're the biker." "Yeah, I'm Von, and I'm getting you out of here." He cut her bonds with quick, efficient movements. She collapsed forward, and he caught her, feeling how light she was, how much blood she'd lost. "Hold on," he muttered. "Just hold on." A noise behind him. Von Spoon, knife ready. A serpent stepped into the doorway, gun raised. "Drop her." Von didn't move. The serpent's hand shook. "I said drop." Nate Dogg appeared behind him like a ghost and brought a tire iron down on the man's skull. The serpent crumpled. "Let's move," Nate said. Von lifted Vanessa's mother into his arms and carried her toward the back door. As they passed through the kitchen, he saw it. A stack of documents on the table. Shipping manifests, names, dates, a sheriff's badge sitting beside a brick of cash. "Tuck," Von called. "Bag that, all of it." They burst out into the night just as headlights cut through the darkness. 3 trucks. Cartel. Von cursed. "Get her to the bikes," he shouted. Gunfire erupted. The farmhouse exploded into chaos. The night lit up with muzzle flashes. Von ran, Vanessa's mother in his arms, bullets kicking up dirt at his heels. Nate Dogg returned fire, his .45 barking in the dark. Tuck moved like a shadow, taking out headlights with precision shots. "Go, go, go," Nate roared. Von reached his bike and laid the woman across the seat, shielding her with his body. An engine roared from the tree line. Nordkarte, not serpents, nomads. Reaper led a convoy of 15 bikes, engines screaming, headlights blazing. They hit the cartel trucks like a freight train. One nomad, a mountain of a man named Hammer, drove his road glide straight into a truck's grill, crumpling the hood and sending the driver through the windshield. Another biker leaned out mid-ride and swung a chain through a window, shattering glass and sending a gunman sprawling. Von fired up his engine, Vanessa's mother clinging to him weakly. "Nate, Tuck, we're out." The convoy reformed, bikes peeling out in a spray of gravel and dirt. Behind them, the cartel regrouped, but the nomads held the line, buying time. Von's radio crackled. Shepard's voice, tight with panic. "Von, more serpents heading for the clubhouse. They're coming for Vanessa." Von's blood went cold. "How many?" 10, maybe more. Von looked at Nate Dogg, at Tuck, at Reaper pulling up beside him. "We need reinforcements," Von said. Reaper grinned. "Already made some calls. Mountain Reapers are 30 minutes out. Iron Saints, too. A 3-charter alliance. Angels, nomads, Reapers." Von nodded. "Then we ride. Fast." They hit the highway doing 90, engines screaming, the desert blurring past. Vanessa's mother whispered against Von's back. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Von said. "We're not done." The clubhouse was under siege. Amber stood at the front window, shotgun braced against her shoulder, watching shadows move in the tree line. Red crouched by the side door, A38 inches her hand, calm as a combat medic waiting for wounded. Lou sat in the bunker room with Vanessa, humming an old hymn, stroking the girl's hair. "They're coming, aren't they?" Vanessa whispered. Lou's voice was steady. "Maybe, but they ain't getting to you, baby. Outside, Ingenes rumbled." 10 Serpent Ridge bikes circled the clubhouse like vultures. One of them, a wiry man with a shaved head, stepped forward, holding a Molotov cocktail. "Send out the girl and we leave peaceful," he shouted. Shepard stepped onto the porch, unarmed, hands visible. "You really want to do this?" he called back. "You know who's coming, right?" The Serpent laughed. "Your boys are 20 miles away. We'll be gone before they get here." Shepard smiled. "I wasn't talking about them." A rumble started in the distance. Low, deep, growing. The Serpents looked at each other, confused. Then the sound became unmistakable. Motorcycles, dozens of them. The horizon lit up with headlights. Angels, nomads, mountain reapers. 60 bikes, rolling in formation, engines synchronized like war drums. The Serpents' faces went pale. Vaughn led the charge, pulling up in front of the clubhouse, Vanessa's mother clinging to him. He dismounted, lifted her gently, and carried her inside. Lou gasped. "Dear God." "She's alive," Vaughn said. "Red, I need you." Red was already moving, trauma kit in hand. Vaughn laid the woman on the couch. Vanessa appeared in the doorway, her eyes going wide. "Mama." She ran forward, and Vaughn caught her gently. "Easy, baby. Let Red work." Vanessa sobbed, gripping Vaughn's hand. Outside, the Serpents were surrounded. Reaper stepped forward. "You boys picked the wrong night." The wiry Serpent dropped the Molotov, hands up. "We're done. We're done." Shepard's voice was cold. "Yeah, you are." Inside, Vanessa's mother opened her eyes. Vanessa. "I'm here, Mama. I'm here." The woman reached out a weak hand, and Vanessa took it. "The biker," she whispered. Vaughn knelt beside them. "I'm Vaughn. You're safe now, both of you." Tears streamed down the woman's face. "Thank you. Thank you." Vaughn pulled the photo from his vest pocket, the one of his sister. He looked at it for a long moment. Then he tucked it away. "You don't have to thank me," he said quietly. "Just get better." Marco, knife priest. Sanchez had one last play. While his crew surrendered, he slipped away into the chaos, circling back toward the clubhouse. He had one goal, the teddy bear, the evidence that would send him and a dozen others to prison for life. He moved through the shadows, knife in hand, eyes locked on the clubhouse door. Inside, Red worked on Vanessa's mother, stitching the wound with steady hands. Lou stayed with Vanessa, keeping her calm. Vaughn stood on the porch, watching the Serpents being zip-tied and loaded into trucks. That's when he felt it. A shift in the air. A presence. He turned. Marco stepped into the light, knife gleaming. "It ends now, Dickens." Vaughn's voice was calm. "Yeah, it does." They circled each other like wolves. Mako struck first, a quick slash aimed at Vaughn's ribs. Vaughn twisted, the blade missing by inches. He countered with a punch that snapped Marco's head back. Marco spat blood and grinned. "You're good, but I'm better." He lunged again, faster this time. The knife caught Vaughn's forearm, opening a shallow cut. Vaughn didn't flinch. He grabbed Mako's wrist, twisted hard, and drove his knee into the man's ribs. Mako gasped, the knife clattering to the ground. Vaughn didn't let go. He slammed Marco against the clubhouse wall, forearm across his throat. "You stabbed a mother in front of a kid," Vaughn growled. "You put your hands on a 6-year-old. Mako's eyes went wide, struggling for air. Vaughn leaned in close. "You're done." He released Mako, who collapsed to the ground, coughing. Shepard appeared, Zipties in hunt. "We got him." Vaughn stepped back, breathing hard, blood dripping from his arm. Vanessa appeared in the doorway, wrapped in Lou's blanket. She looked at Von, at Mako on the ground, at the bikers standing watch, and she understood. This was what her mama meant. Bikers don't get scared, because they're the ones who protect the scared. 3 weeks later, the clubhouse looked like new. Fresh paint, repaired windows, an American flag hanging proudly from the porch. Inside, Vanessa's mother, her name was Claire, sat at the kitchen table, still thin, still healing, but alive. Vanessa sat beside her, coloring. She'd drawn a picture. A man on a motorcycle, big, strong, a lion on his throat. Underneath, in careful letters, "My Angel." Von walked in, carrying groceries. Claire looked up, tears in her eyes. "You don't have to keep doing this," she said. Von set the bags down. "I know." "Then why?" He looked at Vanessa, then back at Claire. "Because I made a promise." The trial came fast. The evidence from the teddy bear, combined with the documents Tuck had grabbed, brought down a sheriff, 3 cartel lieutenants, and the entire Serpent Ridge leadership. Mako got life without parole. The news called it the biggest cartel bust in California history. The bikers called it justice. On a warm Saturday afternoon, the clubhouse held a barbecue. Families gathered. Kids played. Music played from someone's truck. Vanessa ran up to Von, holding a flower she'd picked. "For you," she said shyly. Von took it, his throat tight. "Thank you, sweetheart." She hugged him, and he held her gently, like she might break. Claire walked over, tears streaming. "You gave me my life back," she whispered. "You gave her a future." Von shook his head. "She gave me something too." "What?" He looked at Vanessa, then pulled the photo of his sister from his pocket. A second chance. As the sun set, Von stood on the porch, watching the families, the laughter, the life. Vanessa ran up and tugged his hand. "Von?" "Yeah, baby. Mama says bikers don't get scared. Is that true?" Von crouched down, looking her in the eye. "It's true. You know why?" She shook her head. "Because we ride for people who are. We protect the ones who need it. That's what family does." Vanessa smiled. "You're my family now." Von's voice broke. "Yeah, sweetheart, I am." He stood, looking out at the horizon, at the road stretching into forever. And he whispered the words he'd carry for the rest of his life. "Bikers don't get scared, and now you know why."